stage one then would be ad hoc use. You don't have any organizational license, you don't have training, but some people are actually using it here and there. The risk here is that, some of your data could be quietly leaking out because you don't have those enterprise accounts with those switches turned off where you're not sharing your data and not using it to train models.
Pause for a second because I really like this. Locate yourself first. That was a key piece here, is locate yourself first. It's like lots of times when you're trying to give directions to someone, they say, okay, well, where do I turn? I don't know. Where are you? Right. And that's the challenge with writing a strategy, is your first step in even building a strategy is locate yourself.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Tech Tea Podcast with McLean Forrester. I'm Heather McLean, and I have with me here Larry McLean. Hi, Larry. How you doing today?
Great. Episode 14. Can you believe it? We're at 14 already.
I can't believe it. I mean, actually, I can, because we planned on this. We said we weren't going to stop, and we didn't stop. So here we are with 14, cranking out another one. I love this topic we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a question we keep getting asked over and over. But before we get into that, I'm going to hand it over to you for our What's the Tea segment. This is where we talk about something that's new in technology that we're kind of excited about, or it's very interesting. So what have you got for us today?
All right. Tech Tea News. Exciting stuff. There's the political and social ramifications of data centers is always at the forefront of the news lately. Everyone acknowledges it. However, recently at Computex 2026, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA announced basically they have a new capability. It's RTX Spark, they call it. And it's a Windows laptop, Windows mini PC platform. And it combines what was previously two different products, two different capabilities that had limited capabilities, a CPU and a GPU. They've combined it into one chip. And NVIDIA is calling it the most efficient ever built. They're amazing. They're always innovating.
Yeah, for sure.
What does that mean, right? So that sounds extremely technical, but what does that mean? It's turning your Windows PC into an agentic AI platform.
So hopefully better than Copilot.
It's AI that does tasks, not just answers, right? So it's a big deal. It can run on an AI model locally. So think about now, you're shifting it from the AI capabilities in a data center and bringing some level of that to your PC. So obviously speed and performance and everything else are all now going to be migrating to the PC. Does that eliminate the data centers? No, but it offloads a lot of the demand.
Right. Think about the security aspect of that. I mean, that's one of the reasons people are afraid to trust an LLM, a commercial tool, because they don't want their proprietary information getting leaked.
Absolutely. It's a new frontier there, where if there's something that proprietary and that concerning, you can do it locally. But what is going to really hit people who are users of PCs, we've had a keyboard and mouse for 40 years.
Yeah.
This capability is now going to be the forefront of, wait a minute, I can just talk to my computer. I don't have to use the mouse. I don't have to necessarily use the keyboard. I'm going to have a conversational interface with my PC itself. That's
nice.
That's newsworthy.
That's some Jarvis level stuff there.
I like that. Yeah. And you concern yourself to say, okay, well, is this really coming to people? Is this really going to be something that we'll see? Or is this just going to be somewhere in the cloud somewhere? No, actual software is being built today because these things are going to ship in the fall. Adobe is rebuilding parts of Premiere, Photoshop, and they're actually promising twice the AI features within those products. And the availability this fall is going to be, they said, greater than 30 laptops and 10 desktops this fall from major brands. So
wow.
The headline, AI data center brain is officially coming to your lap this fall. Only question left is whether your apps can support it. So nice. We'll see. That's the tea.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like there's so many things happening, and that's just one more of those cool advancements that we're seeing. So today we're going to talk about, where do I start with AI? This is a question we hear all the time. And it's a great question. And I love this question because it means if you're asking this question, one, you already know that AI matters to your organization. You already know you should be doing something with it. So that puts you into already the good club. You might not know what to do about it yet, but you understand that something needs to be done here. And the other thing this tells me is that like you aren't getting the answers anywhere else. So, we hear a lot, start with strategy. And we say that too, because the strategy is important. But I think it's a lot more than that. And so today we're going to talk about, what are those real tangible things you can actually do to get your organization moving along with AI?
You know what I like, Heather, about the backstory to this is the fact that as we talked in last episode, we've been out on the speaking circuit. We've been out integrating and talking to people who are influencers. We're talking to people, organizations, C-suite people. We're gathering lots of information. We have a technology company. We can implement many of these things, but it's so universal. It's like, what do you use an adjustable wrench for? It comes back to, for our constituents, our clients and customers, that's their struggle. You're absolutely right. That's their struggle. It's okay, well, all this stuff is overwhelming. Where do I start?
Right.
Because I know I need it. And if we've done the research, we've published a lot of research that says this industry, that industry, this other industry over there. There are many laggards and there are many leaders. And those laggards, they want to catch up. They don't want to fall too far behind. And so this is their conundrum.
So the first step, that would be locate where you're at on the AI spectrum. Take a look at where you're at, your organization is at, and figure out where you're at on this ladder. So that could be everywhere from stage 0, you have no engagement with AI. You might have a couple people using Shadow GPT, but it's not an enterprise account. Stage 1 then would be ad hoc use. You don't have any organizational license, you don't have training, but some people are actually using it here and there. The risk here is that, some of your data could be quietly leaking out because you don't have those enterprise accounts with those switches turned off where you're not sharing your data, not using it to train models.
Pause for a second because I really like this. Locate yourself first. That was a key piece here, is locate yourself first. It's like lots of times when you're trying to give directions to someone, they say, okay, well, where do I turn? I don't know. Where are you? Right. And that's the challenge with writing a strategy, is your first step in even building a strategy is locate yourself. If you need direction, figure out where you are. And that's a great first segment. And you're absolutely right. Stage 0, stage 1, it's a haphazard approach and it has risk. In stage 2, which is next, that's your first organized run. You buy an enterprise license. You're starting to corral the herd a little bit, right? Because you have livestock all over the field, all over the place, many pastures over. No, wait a minute. I need to organize things here. And it's interesting because I've talked to organizations. I say, how have you started? We're allowing some people to have some private accounts. We haven't bought an enterprise license. My return question was, how are you ensuring that your proprietary information isn't now populated across the web? Like, well, we aren't.
Right.
Okay, there's risk. Another company I've engaged with recently, they're working on stage 2. The first thing they did was an audit of how many folks in the organization are actually using ChatGPT, Claude, you name it. And the number came up to about 80. How many licenses do you own? 28. Okay, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Great first step. They're doing that audit to say, let's get an enterprise license. Let's provide the training. Let's put together an acceptable use policy. Let's build our basic governance, because that gap of almost 60 licenses was a little scary for them.
So that next step after you have your enterprise licenses, you need to start using it with your own data, right? So start prototyping, start using it within your own organization, within your own data, and start picking out a use case where you can start showing some ROI.
The key piece there that you just mentioned is wired to your own data.
Yeah.
We talk many times in a lot of our presentations of ChatGPT and Claude and others. That's internet knowledge. It's built on 20 years, greater than 20 years of internet knowledge. But what does it know about me and my company?
Right.
What does it know about my HR policies? What does it know about our you name it, our processes, our curated data. It doesn't know anything about that because we don't want it to. But
Right.
now you're starting to wire it into your own data.
Exactly.
Now the value really starts to come.
So the next stage is where you have multiple systems leveraging AI. And this is the key. You have your workflows are actually redesigned around the AI. So you're not just like plopping AI on top of an existing workflow. You're doing the thing that actually creates real organizational value. And that is redesigning your workflows. That is one of the key indicators of success.
So wait a minute. You're saying don't just take a bad process and make it faster.
Now you know better than that.
That's what people are doing though. It's like, yeah, okay, well, this is how I've always done this process.
And
That's what I'm wedded to. That's my normal. Can I just bolt on some AI to this?
well, and
Mhm.
that's also where the real work is, right? Because it takes time and energy to sit down and say, here's our existing process. Now, how can we make this better? Where can the AI insert into that process? Or maybe we need to start over and completely redesign it because it doesn't make sense anymore, given the technology and the advancements we have. So that's where the real work is, but that's actually where the enterprises are seeing the most value be realized from those investments.
I did a webinar just recently, and that was one of the items that we talked about. They were business owners, and I said, okay, really the best way to approach this is erase exactly how you do it today. Only think of your starting point, which is what's the outcome I'm looking for, and then back into it from there. Now think technology and process together. What capabilities does the technology now give me that I'm not hamstrung by the old process? So if you think, and you call it outcome-based thinking, if you have outcome-based thinking, now you've freed your mind to now think of, okay, well, if I'm king or queen for a day, how do I build this thing from startup?
Next stage that very few organizations are at right now is custom AI within your organization. And that really becomes a competitive differentiator. That's like the most mature stage. Most organizations we're finding are around 1 and 2 right now. They either have some personal accounts that people are using, ChatGPT or Claude, or they're at okay, we bought enterprise licenses for one of these tools. And that's okay. You've got to start somewhere, right?
Right. And that stage 5, you really think about almost like industrial royalty. They have the money, they have the people on staff to create custom AI as that genuine competitive moat. And we see stories all the time. The Walmarts, the Amazons, Kroger's. I read a great article about Kroger's just the other day. If you're a Kroger member in Texas, and 51 weeks out of the year, you're buying your groceries there locally in Texas. But 1 week out of the year, you go to Breckenridge, Colorado. They're tracking that to the person entity. So they know that you're going back to Breckenridge on that 52nd week. And they are now passing you incentives to buy products in Colorado because they know your profile changes when you get there. I was amazed and excited about the progress that's being made in that industry.
Yeah, that is a really cool use case. I love hearing about that, especially because when we go skiing, we always go to this one grocery store, and I could see that working on us. We could start getting ads before we even leave about buying certain things. Yeah, it's ingenious. It's brilliant.
But the target audience we typically are looking to help are those companies who are somewhat of a laggard, or they're interested in moving. They're just not there yet, like the big companies are,
Mhm.
the industrial royalty are. What you need to be cautious, though, is yes, you're at stage 1. It's ad hoc. You don't have an org license. It's chaos, and immediately you go, well, let's go out and get multiple systems and workflows redesigned around AI. When your people don't have literacy, you don't have an enterprise
Right.
license, you haven't provided training, all of these things. And that's like putting the pedal to the floor and just moving over to the passenger seat. That's not a smart move.
Yeah, you really need to stick to the pathway, go through your stages sequentially and don't try to leapfrog them.
I like how you numbered them too, though. 1 through 5, they're sequential.
Hmm.
So don't think you have to be at 4 or 5 already. Follow the path,
Right,
like you
right.
said. Yeah.
Before we move on any further, we probably should talk about the levels of AI. And this is something that you have come up with just as a way to explain the different levels that are out there. So you want to talk about level 1?
3 levels of investment depth. Okay, so off the shelf, right? Again, we talked at level 0, level 1 in the previous segment. What does that mean? So I need to get an enterprise license. Now, we've tried several, and there are the off-the-shelf commercial large language models. When we say LLM, I actually had this question just recently. When I said LLM, someone said, what does that mean? Large language model. So Google that, you'll get a great explanation. What it means in commercial terms is ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot. You can get these at a relatively inexpensive per seat cost. $20 to $60 is kind of the range. Keep in mind, many of those come, like Claude comes with Copilot and co-work and things like that are actually really takes your organization forward. Now, it's best suited, at least on the lower levels, for kind of administrative tasks, and that's okay, because there are some organizations, some industries that are heavily on the administrative side. So these things can help a lot. Gartner's estimation is between 5 and 10% productivity gain.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to complain about a 10% productivity gain across your workforce?
Yeah. And the barrier to entry here, cost-wise, is pretty low, right? And $20 to $60 maybe for a seat, and that's per month. So it's pretty easy to get these tools in your people's hands so you can get that level 1, level 2 stage pretty quickly.
And people start playing with it, and it's in a controlled environment, and you start gaining those efficiencies that you were looking for. So when you think of $20 a month, but you're gaining 10% productivity on that person, the ROI is there.
What would be next? What's the next level up? Level 2
Level
here.
2, grounded in your data. This is where now you're starting to bring in your data into the picture versus just pure internet knowledge. There are lots of things I just want to go out and just scour the internet for with a very smart browser, AI powered, like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot. But at some point, I want to work on some internal things, or maybe the context of my question requires some internal information. So it has to be grounded on your data. And we'll call that RAG, which is Retrieval Augmented Generation. All it means is I've established a curated data store. Curated means I've paid attention to what documents and information that I've knowledge that I put into this document store, and that's where I want it to pull the answers from.
Right.
You may have, if it's a process, you may have 6 different people who are really, really sharp in your organization, but potentially they do a specific process 6 different ways. So you force them into a room and you say, let's come up with best practices. Or if it's HR, what's our HR policy for our company? I don't care what the internet says. I need to know what our HR policy is. So again, it comes back to that's a RAG or RAG-like capabilities grounded in your data. Those can be, the cost starts to go up, right? It's not $20 a seat anymore, but the value you're getting from it is significantly more.
We've actually built one of these with our own team because we wanted to have our own knowledge-based RAG system for McLean Forster. And we actually have this, ready to go, something that we could build for any other organization. The example would be that HR RAG chatbot. Your HR personnel can ask questions, your employees can ask questions and get very specific, correct information that's trained on your own HR data. So those aren't cheap though. Those are about what could be 50,000 to 100,000 or more, just depending on how big it is and how elaborate, right? All those features. But that's something that's going to bring a huge ROI for your organization.
What I liked about that too, and the ROI was definitely there, was the fact that this HR department that we piloted with, they said that they were getting significant calls from across the country because they were a countrywide organization. They were getting many calls into their HR office just asking quite often the same question over and over.
Yeah.
While it was in their policy, people just found it easier just to call.
Who can read an HR policy document?
Right, exactly. Go through those 25 pages and you pull out, exactly.
Maybe even more.
Yeah. So, they factored in that potentially they could get the equivalent of one full-time person's value out of this and the ROI paid for itself within the first year. I mean, typically you're looking for 3 to 5 years of an ROI. It was the first year.
Okay, so that brings us to level 3, which is very custom. And this is where you can really see differentiation between you and your competitors. The more you build up your specific custom domain AI.
And when we say domain, I mean, the point here is whatever your organization is, you have data, and you probably have lots of data. And in data terms, it's your common data terms across the organization. What data do I use across the organization, not just in one department? Things like your customers, things like your locations, your products, your services, all of these things, those are unique to you and only you. So therefore, now it becomes very custom and very domain specific within your organization. You see this all the time with large organizations where you use this information across, think of an Amazon purchase. They're using that customer information across very, very different aspects of that purchase. Here, very domain specific. How do you know your customers? Because
this sounds like more than ChatGPT or RAG system, right? How is it different?
Because think of, the Kroger example was very good. Kroger has a list of all of its customers. Kroger has a list of their locations. Kroger has a list of the many things that the people buy on a regular basis. Example, if you never buy dog food in your history, then why would I offer you coupons for dog food?
Right.
And so now I get hyper-personalized. Yeah. I know you're going skiing in Breckenridge in 3 weeks. I'm going to offer you customized coupons or customized incentives that I know that you're going to need when you hit the ground in Breckenridge. These are capabilities you're not going to get off ChatGPT or Claude or any of the others. That has to be custom built for that organization. But as these big, as I call them, the industrial royalty are finding out, the value is there. Amazon has grown by using this type of modality. They've grown, they estimate that about 35% of their sales comes from this type of hyper-personalized information push.
And I want to hit on the key here is, as you're using these tools, as you're progressing through these levels, you've got to be redesigning the work and the processes around that AI, not just bolting it on, right? And this comes straight from McKinsey's State of the AI report 2025, where they said that organizations that actually redesign their workflows are 3 times more likely to actually realize measurable value. So it's been shown that this actually does give you that ROI that you're looking for, but you got to do it. You got to put in the work there.
And a key piece to that is redesigning the work. That's a challenge. That's a challenge with many facets. Because yes, it's about the technology. Yes, it's about finding the right partner who can help you implement and knows that technology, but it's also process reengineering. But it's also change management.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Think about change management. I've seen many cases where you came in and externally recreated a process, but the people who are accustomed to the old process significantly resistant to migrating over to that new process because they didn't like it. It was new. It was different.
Of course.
I lost my comfort zone.
Change is hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we know where we're at on the AI spectrum of, implementation. We understand the 3 levels. So the next thing you might be asking is like, okay, what do you recommend? Heather and Larry, what should I be doing? So let's go through the 6 things that you can be doing right now. Let's try to hit these a little quicker. I'll start with number 1, get that enterprise AI license. That's something you can do this quarter. It's not that expensive and it's relatively easy to implement. That will start building your literacy among your organization.
Okay. And then you also want to know what data AI is not going to work unless it has data. So as we now start to try to connect to our data, start where your data and your decisions live. What data do I have that's good? Where do I make my critical business decisions? So where's the data cleanest? Where are the decisions most repeatable? Those are prime targets to start.
Right. And we always say you don't have to have perfect data to start, but it has to be good enough for your use case. All right. Number 3, and I've harped on this already a couple times, but treat that workflow redesign as the main event. That's the thing you really want to get to when you're starting to leverage AI.
And get people to participate. There was a phrase that was passed to me many, many years ago. People will support what they help create.
Yep.
So if you come in externally to a team who you want to change their process, involve them. You will have much greater
Something
success.
worse than someone handing you a new process that you had
Yeah.
nothing to do with and had no input to.
I
Yeah,
love
that's a sure way to get people turned off of it.
that.
All right, after that,
Codify the knowledge in your top performers' heads.
yes, this is
You
building
can't.
up your knowledge base, your
Yes.
proprietary knowledge base that's sitting in probably your senior level people, that guy who's been there 20 years, right? That's a knowledge, your corporate knowledge you want to be pulling out.
There are many times as a leader you say, oh, if I could just clone that person.
Right.
Well, you can now. Digital twin, basically, it's what you're doing is you're creating a digital twin of this person and all that knowledge that's in their head. And as you get into this panic zone of they're retiring in 2 years, how do I now extract all that?
Right.
Yeah, let's do that digitally.
This is going to help you in your organization regardless of AI, but definitely start getting all that knowledge written down. Okay, the next one, match your data rigor to the stakes. Now, we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, but we see two common data traps, right? Launching with dirty data, and then what do you get? Garbage in, garbage out. Or people are waiting till the data is perfect. And, we would say your answer is right in the middle, right? And it also depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do something with, like to help make medical recommendations, you probably want to be a little more accurate, have a little bit better data than if you're starting with, maybe a back office process that you don't have to have perfect data for.
And much like any project that you do, as you commission this project for implementation of AI and redesign a process, you break down the project just like you do any other way, right? And the data element and getting that data clean is just one segment of the project.
Yeah. All right. And then the last step.
Sequence the AI roadmap around your decisions you want the AI to improve. Prioritize by value and feasibility. We say often, it's a business decision. It's not a technology decision, right? You're looking for what is the value proposition to my business. In some of our presentations, we talk about what does the COO say? Where's my value proposition here? What does the CFO say? What's the return of investment?
Right.
Any one of these technology-based activities has to come with those, right? Otherwise, don't do it.
Right. And so you've got to leverage that information on the value, feasibility,
right,
to put your roadmap together, right? And that's something we can help with. We can get you from zero to, a roadmap for the next year or so, or even further with just a little bit of time.
So we start the whole segment here today with, don't just go out and do a strategy. Hopefully now there's some takeaways here in that it isn't just sitting down and just imagining what the thing should be. It's really about following these steps, figuring out much of what we just talked about. That's how you build an actual implementable strategy.
Right. And this is not easy stuff, right? If it were easy, everybody would have the answers, but it's not. And, we always recommend getting someone who knows what they're doing, who's done this before to help. That there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't expect my existing IT team to understand all of these nuances.
Yeah, that's one of the pieces we put in our presentations too. It's like, how many of your people did you hire in their job description more than 3 years ago?
Probably a lot.
Yeah, probably a lot, right? How many of those people, because AI and everything here is so new, how many of those people actually had AI in their job description?
Yeah, none.
Few to none.
Maybe
right?
the AI data scientist.
Right. And that was it. So now you're asking all of these folks to now suddenly get smart on how to do this.
Right. It's almost an unrealistic expectation of your current team. So
Right.
All right. So now I think we have to just give a little bit of warning to the risks that might sneak up on you. We've touched on a couple of these already, but the first one, of course, the one we hit on first was the data leakage into commercial LLMs. So, all these tools have toggles where you can say, don't share my data, don't use it for training, and you got to make sure those are off. And the only way to do that as an enterprise or a company is to get that enterprise license and make sure all of those switches are turned off. Get rid of that shadow AI use.
Shadow AI. It was interesting, Heather, you say that, because just recently I was teaching a course in this, and half of the class, when I said what you just said about making sure that those are toggled correctly, probably 2/3 of the class pulled up, opened their laptops, and they went to check. Half of them,
because you don't know, right? Who's training you on that?
right, exactly. And so they had this moment of realization. It's like, wait a minute, I've been sharing everything with the internet. I was kind of astounded by the percentage, actually.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, regulatory exposure. You got to think about privacy and compliance, and the laws are very different in the United States than they are in Europe. So these are things you need to research, especially if you're building products that use AI. You really need to understand, where you stand and what things you need to be doing here to protect yourself.
Right. And as you move into those higher levels, you're going to be creating customer facing context information.
Right. That's where it really comes in. I remember the story, gosh, it was about a year and a half ago, was some company's website had a chat bot and was basically giving out, false information that somebody actually followed, and then they sued them. So there's real liability here you need to consider.
Drano, an after dinner drink. No, it's not.
And we've seen a number of these cases. Some of them really sad.
For anyone listening, no, that wasn't a real headline.
Not a good idea. All right, next one.
Model depreciation, vendor lock-in. You have to be cautious of that, primarily because in the model depreciation, you have to always keep it fresh, right? If you had documents from 3 years ago, you loaded into your AI, as I mentioned, the curated repository, but you've updated 50% of those documents in the meantime, or the model is no longer answering the right questions, you have to keep all that fresh. Yeah. So it's a maintenance aspect.
I mean, we're building a product right now with models that we loaded up in January. They're already deprecated. So you have to do constant maintenance and keep up with these things so that your products, your tools are still working a couple months down the road.
And that kind of falls into the next one, which is the quality drift. You have to make sure you keep it fresh, right? And the hallucinations. Now, hallucinations is an interesting aspect, because with hallucinations, if you're going out for internet knowledge, potentially, that increases your rate of hallucinations, because it doesn't know you and it doesn't have the right context. Claude's doing a great job. As an example, it will come back and prompt you for more context, which is a good thing, because apparently you didn't give it enough context.
It still does make things up. So
it does.
In the products we're building, we are using AI evaluations, guardrails. There are things you can do to check the quality of the output and make sure that you're not going off the rails.
Right. The more you constrain it, the more accurate and fewer hallucinations.
I think with the risk overview, we kind of summed it all up. In summary, figure out where you're at, understand the levels that are out there. So understand the possibilities in different types, and sort of work your way up those stages of AI maturity. And then along the way, keep mind of the risks and get your organization to actually redesign their processes to make, to really see the value out of it.
You don't have to have it all figured out already. Exactly. Just because Walmart and Amazon and others have, it doesn't mean you have to have figured out. Get started, right? You don't have to have it all figured out, but you have to start.
And you know why? Because the research is showing that consumers are expecting the same types of interactions and outputs from smaller and medium-sized companies that they're getting from Walmart and Amazon. So it's important that you start implementing some of these capabilities to stay competitive.
And what that's doing in those larger organizations are reducing friction, so that user experience has far less friction. Well, if pivoting over to you and your company has friction, why would I choose that, right? Exactly. At some point, it's going to be very observable on the difference.
Well, I hope we've given you some information on where do I start, a little bit of more information on what can I do with our 6 recommendations. And I would always say, if you want to chat, we are always here. Conversations are free, and we love to meet new people. So reach out, and maybe there's something we can do to help, or some way we can push you along in the right direction. We're happy to help.
Absolutely. Call me.
All right, everybody. I think that wraps it up for episode 14 of the Tech Tea podcast with McLean Forrester. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for everything, Larry. And take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.